You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello, and welcome to another episode. We have Shauna Lynn Simon as our guest. Shauna is the CEO of Shauna Lynn Coaching and founder of SLS Academy. She's a renowned business strategist, author, and host of the Real Women, Real Business podcast. She empowers high-performing entrepreneurs, CEOs, and business owners to scale their businesses, foster autonomy in their teams, and reclaim their time. Welcome, Shauna Lynn.
Thank you so much, Shauna. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so let's talk about how is it, because we were chatting about this a minute ago, how is it that you're helping people with data-driven decisions in their businesses?
I know it's super sexy sounding, isn't it?
Mm.
So I actually have a Bachelor of Mathematics degree, and I started off as an analyst, and I've just always loved numbers. It's something that, numbers don't lie to you. And when we operate based on our gut and our feeling, there's a lot of power there. But when we can back that up with data, that's where it's most important. I think you and I spoke actually previously about talking about understanding what your market is actually demanding. Like, is there a demand for, if you're coming up with a brand new product or service, is there even a demand for it? And so we think about data in that sense, but in every decision we're making in our business, there's data out there to support it, whether it exists in market reports or industry standards or in your own business. But the more things that we can track, the better. I was actually just working with a client last week, and we're trying to make some decisions about some direction, the next direction to go in her business. And it was something that, she's saying, well, I'm not sure if I should be continuing to offer this service. I'm like, well, what does the data say? And she loves her spreadsheet. So we dug into what the last 6 to 8 of those services, it's not something that's offered a lot. So the last 6 to 8 of them, what did this look like in terms of financials, profitability, all sorts of things. So there's so many ways that data can play a role in our businesses. And it doesn't have to be overly labor intensive to actually collect the data, review the data. But I think so many people get so scared and turned off of it because they might have these mathematical nightmares from high school that they're still traumatized by and trying to get over. So it's something that I work with my clients on, creating nice, easy strategies, of course, to help them to be able to review the data, collect the data, and be able to make decisions based on that.
Okay, so we all know, well, we should know, some of us know, that data is so important for decision making, much more so than hunches or intuition. And there's been a
Absolutely.
lot of, stuff about, oh, we have to trust our intuition. No, because we've proven, and I was just reading a book about exponential organizations, that data, however you're going to say it, is so much more important. They've proven that that's much more important than gut or intuition or experience
Yes.
even. So what differences have you seen since you started using data-driven metrics to help people make decisions in their business? What's been the change in some of your business and other people's businesses?
Yeah, I think, here, I'll tell you exactly what the biggest change is that I run through with every one of my clients. I've run through it in my own business is we often find ourselves pulled in 23 different directions at any given moment, right? And there's a lot of chaos that comes with that and understanding, where should I be spending my time? Where should I be focusing it? When you look at the data in terms of what is actually bringing in revenue and not just what is bringing in the most amount of revenue, but the most profitable revenue. That is one of the biggest things that we tend to look at is, can we give up some of the services or products in our catalog? I tend to work with what I call the accidental CEO. So this might resonate with some people that are listening to this, in that you started a business based on a passion more so than a plan. And so with that, it's easy for things to kind of get out of control. A client asked for X service. So you're like, yeah, sure, that's kind of related to what I do. Let me throw in X service. And then next thing you know, someone wants Y service. And then they want K service and H service. And next thing you know, you're offering 26 different services that don't necessarily align with why you originally started. So now all of those different services are pulling you in so many different directions. You can't sustain all of them. And so by looking at the data in terms of what your most profitable services are, it's amazing what we can actually move to eliminate or significantly reduce. So maybe it's a matter of you're not going to get rid of this service, but take it off your website. Let's stop promoting that this is a service, because the reality is this 10-hour service that you're offering, for example, is costing you 12 hours of time every single time you offer it. So while it might seem like, oh, it's a quick win, it's a really good fill in the gap kind of service during my slow time, but the reality is it's not actually playing into your profits. And so, and I think, money is kind of an obvious data point that we can look at, but there's so many other data points. I'm sure most people, to your point, most people should be familiar with a KPI, but very few of us have actually implemented KPIs. And it doesn't have to be, we hear about I look at my open rate on my emails and my click-through rate on my emails, but do you know what your cost of acquisition is for your clients? Do you know where they're coming from? Do you know what it is that they're actually looking for? Maybe there's a service that's like buried deep in your service listing that is actually the one that people really need if only they knew about it. So when we look at, website traffic, when we do surveys, market research, all of those things help us to understand what is that people want. And market research is probably one of the top indicators, aside from things like, you can get your website traffic and your bounce rates and your click-through rates and everything else. But that doesn't replace having an actual conversation with people and saying, what is it about this that you like or dislike? And so getting on those market research calls, having those conversations, and you're not having 20 conversations so that one person will validate your point. You're having 20 conversations to make sure that what you are offering is actually what the people really want. And you're going to notice a theme of people saying, what I really wish existed and it doesn't, is whatever. And it's usually a problem that they identify. They don't have the solution. They're looking to you for the solution. But that's a way to really dig into some data.
Right. Okay. Well, you're talking about talking to people. Well, I love that, because that's what I teach people is talk to people online, talking to people with, organic marketing. And that's the best.
Right.
Market research is just to talk to people. What's going on? And you don't even have to create a campaign. It's just every day talking to people and noting what they're saying, rather than, hey, I'm doing market research. Just have a conversation, and the market research is within the conversation. So I love that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And you know what the best part about those conversations is, further to your point there, like when you're having those conversations, you're doing it to gain data, right? You're doing it to gain that information. But you know what ends up being the side effect of that is you stumble across people who need your services. So you're able to do almost a bit of a sales pitch without even having to actually do a sales pitch. They're identifying something they need, and you can be like, oh, actually, did you know that I offer this? That totally fills in what you're looking for. Like, oh, okay.
Right.
So you end up making sales. Every one of my clients that's ever done market research calls has booked clients out of it.
Of course.
Whether they were someone that they'd worked with previously or not, they end up booking clients because you're having that conversation. And to your point about the organic part of it, it's an organic conversation. You're not necessarily following a full questionnaire and saying, answer these questions. You should have what questions you want answered in that conversation, but you don't have to follow a script. You're having a conversation, you're having a dialogue, and you're actively listening to the answers that they're giving and responding to those.
Right.
And making that connection.
I think they're scared off when they think they have to do the surveys and the survey funnels and all of that. And it's basically talking to another human being is market research. Now let's go back to something that's one of my favorite subjects, and that is the reducing of offers. Like, Steve Jobs, when he went back to Apple, he got rid of hundreds of products and boiled it down to 4. I think it was 4 products. It was, right?
I want to say it was 4. That sounds familiar, but yeah.
It was 4 because it was the professional desktop Mac for like professional people. Then it was the personal. And then he had, I think, the iPod at that point. And then one other product. So it was 4.
Yeah, it wasn't the phone yet.
No, it wasn't the phone yet. And then they became profitable, and I think they made billions of dollars. So now I'm all in on that, because I've had the same offering for 5 years. And then I added a longer version of that because people asked for it. They said, I want to work with you longer. And it was very organic. And it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to add this. It just happened. I want to work longer. So we have 2. And then I added a third very high level. So and even Alex Hormozy says, sell the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and just make it really good. But what happens with people is they're running around thinking they have to have this. They always talk about their product suite. And it's almost like they love saying the words, I have a product suite, because it sounds kind of sexy, right? Product
Sure.
suite. Well, if we could get away from the ego of that, I think that we would all be more profitable, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, how do you help people, and how can people help themselves? I think this is a better question. How can people help themselves to minimize their product suite so that they don't even have to use that word anymore? How can they
Yes.
do that? Like, legitimately, very practically, get it down to I call it the highest impact action, which is the thing that's selling the most. Can you help people
Yeah.
actually do that here on this
Yeah.
interview?
So let's start by addressing the panic that people are going to start experiencing as soon as we're saying we want you to reduce your number of offers. And that panic is, but I don't want to say no to anyone. They want to know that they have something for everyone. You can actually have something for, I don't want to say everyone, because not everyone should be your client, but for every one of your ideal clients, if you've got that really solid, you can actually have something for every one of them without having a massive suite. And it usually comes down to exactly what you were just talking about, 3 products. 3 is the magical number. I call it my Goldilocks packaging or my Goldilocks pricing. You've got one that's got, kind of your basic, one that's in your middle tier, and one that's your high level. Sort of that good, better, and best. And this is not a new concept by any means, but you're going to find something that works for everyone. So if you've got that client that's always complaining about price, no problem. They can get something for that price point, but there's going to be stripped down in terms of what it is that they can get for that. And then you're going to have the super top tier, which is also going to be quite exclusive. You're only going to have a few people in that, and that's going to satisfy those people who really want that extra level from you. But that way you feel comfortable providing that extra level. And I'm referring to services because most people, I think, are in the service business more so than products. Mm-hmm. So they've got this, this high level service. And then that middle one, though, that's the sweet spot. So that's the one that we spend the most time thinking about. Based on your ideal client, based on majority of the people, what is it that they are looking for? What is it that they really need? And that's when you create that magical product. So it might be that you already have it. It might be something that you're already offering, already fits all the needs of everyone, and it's already selling like hotcakes. There's other times where it might be like, well, I've almost got it, but I feel like I could add a little something to it. Adding something to it could raise the pricing, or maybe you're simply adding something to it that raises the value that doesn't cost you anything to do it and just gets you more sales on it. But focus on that main product first, and then add something higher and something lower. And then while I don't want to say eliminate everything else, take a really close look at everything else that you're offering and really evaluate the value of it. So again, it goes back to how much time does it take to offer this? I'll give an example. I work with a lot of home stagers because that's where my background is. After my corporate career, I went into the home staging business and did that for about 15 years. And so it's common for home stagers to acknowledge that, my clients also need decluttering services. So I'm going to add decluttering services. But now they realize, I actually don't understand the whole psychology behind things like hoarding and why people are hanging on to things and the sensitivity to getting rid of things. They just think they're going to go in and pack up some boxes. But as they start offering the service, they realize, I actually could use a little bit of training. And actually, I should also team up with a moving company that can help to provide the supplies. And maybe I should actually sell the supplies because then I can make an extra couple bucks on that. And then in addition to that, all the behind the scenes, like, now I need a proper invoicing system for it. I need my email all set up so that I've got my confirmations to them and they get all the right information because I showed up the last time and they weren't prepared for me. So now I need to create this little PDF for them so they're prepared for it. And you see where I'm going with this. Like now this service that they're like, a lot of my clients need this decluttering service. And the reality is you booked 2 of them last year. You made a few $100s, but you spent 30 hours just trying to get that service up and going. So looking at what you're currently offering and identifying, like, is it actually profitable? Is the time you're investing in that paying for itself? And, you might think, well, if I promoted it more, it could. Okay, crunch the numbers. Because this is another thing that a lot of people don't spend the time doing is they're like, I want to make $10,000 this month. Great. What does $10,000 look like to you? How many of A, B, and C services does that look like? And when they crunch the numbers, they realize, based on the hours that I have available, I can't actually offer A, B, and C services in the quantities that's necessary to bring this in. So now let's take that data and figure out, okay, so you want to bring in $10,000 this month and you have this many hours. It means you need to basically be charging whatever that works out to per hour, what service is going to get you that? And then eliminate the ones that aren't bringing that value in.
I love that you just broke that down. And it's a good example because a lot of people don't even do those numbers. Like,
right.
Do you have time? How much money? And it's very simple, but they haven't thought that far. And a lot of businesses do that. They're not thinking, they're just thinking, oh, I could make some more money. And when I've said to certain clients, well, let's look at that though. How many can you actually take? How many have you had? And how much money and time is it costing to get these rare clients? And they're like, you're right. If we eliminate that and sell more of what's selling already, that would be a better solution. Okay. So I love that. So you're still in the home staging industry, yes?
I'm in the industry, but I'm no longer operating a home staging business. So I did that for 15 years, closed it down in 2023, and have shifted my focus to more of the online training that I offer for home stagers. So I provide both certification and continuing education for home stagers. And that's one of the reasons why I got out of being a stager myself. I wanted to be able to put better focus onto being able to offer the quality that I wanted in that training and really support my students. So I'm still definitely within the industry, spent a lot of time with my home stager colleagues and my clients and such, but I'm not actually working within the industry anymore.
Now you can help them succeed better.
Exactly.
Okay, what got you in? What was your story before the home staging? What got you into all of that?
Yeah, so I was working in the corporate world as an analyst, as I mentioned, and I had just purchased my first house, and that was quite a process. Being a single woman, I really relied heavily on my real estate agent being able to help me as a bit of a sounding board, as a partner, but feeling that I was, really well supported in making the right decision for the right home that I was going to have for a long term. So in that, I really enjoyed the whole home buying process. And so what happened was shortly after I bought this house and I've got mortgage payments and such, lost my job, got laid off. So went into only a mild panic. Fortunately, I'd had some hospitality experience, so I went back to bartending full time while I figured things out. But I kept going back to, man, I really loved the home buying experience. So I called up my real estate agent, invited her out for lunch, said, I'd love to just chat with you about the real estate industry. And so we start talking about it. And the more she's explaining the industry to me, the more I'm like, oh, this really doesn't sound like something I would really enjoy from that side of things. And she says to me, she says, you know what you should be? She's like, you should be a home stager. So apparently I kind of drove her nuts when we were walking into these houses. We'd walk in, I'd be like, oh, this looks great, but I don't know why they were using that room as the dining room. I'd move that over here. I'd pull up the carpet. I'd take out a little bit of that wall. I'd definitely change out all the light fixtures in here, paint a whole new fresh coat of paint, and then we'd be good to go. She'd be like, great. Do you want to put an offer in? Oh, no, this house isn't for me. Just saying if I did, that's what I would do. I had no idea that was a skill set that like 90% of people don't have. Only 10% of people have that ability to visualize beyond what's in front of them.
That is so interesting you say that.
Yeah.
Because I have a degree in design. And I thought everybody could do that. I thought that everybody could just, while their eyes are open, reimagine a space and what that would look like and arrange it in your minds. And it was shocking to me when I realized that, no, it's only 10% of us can do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, as I was designing my house, I kept coming up with these ideas and realizing that I couldn't find them somewhere. So I'm making them my own. And, this is also going back to, this is 2007. So it's, the internet was not what it is today. Things weren't as online and readily available at your fingertips. And so the more I started kind of getting those creative juices flowing, the more I remembered how much I loved being creative when I was younger. And in hindsight, because hindsight's always 20/20, of course, in hindsight, in high school, I was creative and loved math. I was supposed to be an architect, obviously. But no one identified that, not including myself, of course. So this was sort of the next best thing as a second career. I loved the idea of being able to support homeowners. That was the biggest thing. When I realized that 90% of people couldn't do this, I thought, wow, they're missing out. And I felt bad for them. I felt like, they're leaving money on the table here. How can I help to support that? And it was a very new industry at the time, but wow, it was life-changing for me to get into that industry. And especially at the time that I did, when it was still so new and so unknown, and watching it flourish into what it is now. I mean, I would go out to networking events and I would tell people that I was a home stager, and they would look at me like I had 3 heads. What the heck is that? And they had no idea. And nowadays, if you tell someone that you're getting your house staged, or you're working with a stage, or you are a home stager, majority of people have at least some idea as to what that is.
Yes.
Yeah. Come a long way.
It's true. I didn't even know what that was. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I became aware
Yeah.
what a stager is, but I thought it was like a rare thing. That's awesome. Okay, so
Yeah.
you did that for a long time, and then you decided you just wanted to support home stagers and other women CEOs with what you know. Okay,
Yeah.
so great. So now you're helping people out with the data driven. You're helping them become lean and mean and more profitable. Now, what is something that you've learned in business that it's what's your a business lesson that you've learned that you'd like to tell people?
Oh, wow. Keeping it nice and vague, aren't you? Because there's so many lessons that I feel like I've learned along the way. But probably the biggest lesson I've learned, and it's not just in business, but in life, is that the more you learn, the more you have to learn.
Mm.
And I think that this merits, saying out loud and reminding people of, because I think we often feel like if I just learn this other thing, then I'll know everything I need to know about this. And if I just learn this one other thing, but the reality is that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And there's so much value to just that continuous learning. And, I think when we were in high school, especially, we think, okay, I'm going to finish high school. Some of us did post-secondary. And there was sort of this end date of like, then I'm done with the schooling stuff. And so school looks different as you get older.
Mm.
But especially nowadays, there's so many resources, whether it's a book or a podcast like this, or a webinar or a paid training event, a retreat. There's so many different ways that you can continue to access information. And it should never be that there's an end line to that. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned for everything that I've mastered in my own business. There's so many other things that I still haven't even begun to scratch the surface of. And I mean, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Malcolm Gladwell or I'm a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell. He's actually from a town about 20 minutes from me.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about the 10,000 hours to mastery.
Yes.
And that's the truth of it, that if you don't have 10,000 hours, you are not a master at anything. And so getting your 10,000 hours in and continuing to just learn, there's always new ways of doing things, better ways of doing things, and leaving yourself open to that possibility. I think that's just leave yourself open to always understanding that there's something that you don't know and you can learn.
Well, those are some words to live by. Thank you so much for turning up. Thank you for listening, everybody. Please love this show. Please share. Please tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell your colleagues about business, wealth, impact, and we'll see you on the next one.
You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Shauna Lynn, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Shauna Lynn International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact.